Hello, very beautiful community. We've got to start firing Trump from interviews when he melts down. What is this about? It's not about new skills that interviewers need to acquire because they're not good enough. It's about the fact that institutionally and culturally we need to better respond to post-truth political speech. Right? So we're going to watch Kristen Welker experiencing and handling a Trump meltdown. This is not us saying Kristen needs to improve her skills. She's formidable. She's got the skills. What we are saying is that there needs to be an institutional and a cultural change that facilitates journalists to do things differently. If it doesn't happen, we're going to witness the degradation and the perception of the degradation of the institution of professional journalism. So let's have a look at Trump's latest meltdown and from this big picture perspective talk ourselves through it. Why is this so important? It's because when we come out of the bay and go into open water, at each single point in that journey, it'll be compelling to us to pretend that we're still in the bay even though we're not. And therefore, we approach democratic decline like we do the climate crisis with a don't look up disposition. Okay, screen record. Let's rock and roll together, beautiful community.
The election was rigged. It was a dirty election. And it's happening again right now in California.
Presented evidence.
It's happening right now in California.
The answer is not you've never presented evidence. The answer is, and again, this is big picture observation. This is not me saying that Kristen should have done better in that interview. The answer is not you should have presented evidence, present your evidence. The answer is it wasn't rigged. So are you a liar or are you delusional?
California. Right now, it's look at what's happening in California.
To that?
It's
the
4
Republicans
days.
are doing well in
California. It's no, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election. Let me tell you, it's 4 days, and they aren't even close.
Look at how red the orange hue is, and look at how much aggression there is on his face. And don't forget that in public life, negativity begets negativity. Disinhibition begets disinhibition. I am, even though I'm very critical and eviscerating, I am very positive. People who know this content well feel that what I offer, even though it's pessimistic and realistic in all kinds of ways, is very positive. But I am not positive enough. We are not positive enough online. I am guilty of that too. Because we underestimate just the sheer physiological impact of saying all the time that the skies are grey. And what we need to do is not actually to say that they're less grey than they are. It's that the respects in which they're still beautiful or the moments when they're still blue need to be emphasized more.
That's how they count the votes.
You know why they're doing that? Because they're cheating on the election.
Do you have evidence to support
all I have to do is look. All I have to do is look.
That's not evidence.
And I listen to people, and let's see what happens.
But, sir, that's not evidence.
Do you think it's appropriate?
That's how they count the votes in California.
Do you think it's appropriate that they have an election, and 5 days later, they're nowhere close to picking a winner?
State and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote in California.
They're crooked, just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
Really?
Let's
Well,
continue.
you play right into their hands.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid. You play right into their hands with this rap. You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged. You know that I won an election in a landslide, and I got 94% bad press.
But, Mr. President,
you know why I
you've
got
never
that?
presented
Because you have no
evidence.
credibility.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking
Should
about
have been
I wanna talk
stopped by
about
now.
You have more evidence. There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk
Your
about
elections
you
in
went
this
to
country.
My elections? They're the elections of the American people. You don't represent the American people, Mr. Trump. Right? He's a monarchist. He doesn't think you need elections. He thinks that there really shouldn't be anything that hampers the expression of the will of the king. The king is the only institution in town with perceived legitimacy. The king has a magical link to the people, and by the people we don't mean all the people, we mean some kind of perceived majority against which you put a demonized minority. But that's not the point of this talk. The point of this talk is that he should have been already interrupted a minute ago.
Like a third world country.
But, sir,
your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC, and CBS, and CNN.
So a few people have said this, including the British commentator David Aronovich, and I agree. Cut the interview at this point.
Your one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
This is really, really not Kristen's fault, but he calls her darling, calls her crooked, and she is imploring him to not leave. What does this do? Undermines trust in journalism as an institution. Right? Because the institution needs to be perceived as having some force, as having some power, as having some intransigence in its relationship with truthfulness. Right? So this is not her fault at all. This is our culture, and this is the fact that we don't have any institutional solutions. Right? But at this point, if we had institutional solutions, if we had the culture, she would have told Trump to apologize on the spot. Mr. President, you've been offensive. Apologize, or this interview is over. Ideally, you don't leave, you make him leave, right? Mr. President, apologize or get out. Now, this cannot be a criticism of the journalist in this case, because this can't happen just with the journalist doing it. It needs to be collective, it needs to be institutional, and preferably it needs to be intra-institutional, right? Who could ever achieve that? Well, 2 or 3 individuals at the top of institutions, appropriately motivated, could begin to put this into place, right? There's a lot of stuff you can't do when you're facing democratic decline because you're dealing with social forces you can't entirely control, right? There's only a limited amount you can do about the gross inequality we live with. There's only a limited amount you can do, more than we're doing though, but still a limited amount about the state of the internet. There's only a limited amount you can do about certain cultural forces that are making us feel that we are individuals who don't belong to society, right? But it's important that we are not utilizing, even to a degree of 10%, the power of relationships, right? And the central theory of change in human affairs is the power of relationships. Right? So yes, indeed, it is true that we could do a lot. In this case, we could do a lot to defend journalism better if the heads of 20 of the most important journalistic institutions in the Western world got together and said, we're going to establish some parameters for ourselves about how we deal with post-truth populists. And we're going to make this intra-institutional, inter-institutional, and we're going to enable our journalists to do the right thing on the spot by making them feel supported, by making them feel that they're not going to shoulder the risk of the hit to views, for example, that their actions might trigger.
I know. I traveled all the way to
Yeah, so it's not her fault at all that she's saying,
I've given you enough time.
you know,
straighten out your press
we've gone out of the way to be here. Can we please continue? She should not be saying this, but it's not her fault that she is saying this.
Mr.
A
President,
country can never be great with a dishonest
listen, we
press.
traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
She's basically in a very difficult situation. She's a highly, highly skilled person in a very difficult situation who is missing a tool set that she can't give herself. It needs to be institutionally given. And there we go. He walks out. All right. So why is what I am saying so far removed from reality? But why are 83.4% of you are thinking, yeah, that makes sense? It's because we are incredibly complacent about recognizing the fact that we are living in a transformational historical moment. When it's difficult to admit that, the instinct is to underplay the degree to which this is a transformational moment, that we need to act differently, right? This is why what you're seeing here, essentially, right, to the side of me on the screen, is a world that is in a post-truth age. Right? By post-truth age, I don't mean that truth has collapsed. I mean that truth is as important as ever, but we're in an age where, for various reasons, we have social forces triggering voters to vote for politicians who disregard the truth. So that's what's meant by post-truth age. But we are not recognizing that we're in a post-truth age. What we've got is a situation where we're still relating to these politicians as though they were liar politicians, the kind of politicians we had a couple of decades ago. That's not where we are. But admitting where we are is painful, because it's going to ask us to do a lot that feels scary. Personally scary for our careers, scary for the institutions which we represent. It's these are not safe choices that are being asked of us, right? We're asked to engage in offense, not defense, to deal with this. But we're choosing to do defense and say, well, yeah, the world has not maybe changed as much as it seems, so it's still okay to go on doing the old stuff. The reality is that we're going to be hit in the face repeatedly about this, and we will eventually wake up. But when we wake up, it's going to be needlessly late to make the kind of changes we need to make. Lots of love and talk soon.